I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. President Biden's political future in question as a growing list of Democrats call for the 81-year-old to drop out of the 2024 election. Less than a week after Biden's poor debate performance, Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett from Texas became the first Democrat to break ties with the president. The White House now doing more damage control.
We understand the concerns. We get it. The president did not have a great night, as you all know.
Donald Trump's sentencing in his hush money case has been postponed to September. Trump was previously scheduled to face sentencing on July 11th for his conviction. The judge overseeing the case agreed to delay sentencing to consider the impact of a new Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity. Trump denies any wrongdoing.
What we have in New York is a situation where a substantial number of official acts of the presidency, things that we believe are official acts, were used as evidence.
Hurricane Beryl is powering northern Jamaica Wednesday. The hurricane is back down to a Category 4 storm with sustained winds just over 150 miles per hour. At least 3 storm-related deaths have been reported. Those are your headlines now. Here's a look at your weather on the ones.
Hey everybody, I'm meteorologist Nate Harrington. As we inch closer to the 4th of July, sweltering heat and more storms. Part of our forecast, a satellite radar picture on Tuesday, much like what we had on Monday, this big heat dome in the southern plains, the southwest, and the central portion of our country. And then you notice storms across the Midwest and Ohio Valley. And it's more of the same for Wednesday. 60 million people under heat alerts on Tuesday, but the sweltering heat continues. We're also tracking Beryl in the Caribbean coming up.
Uncertainty in D.C. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharon Tazwell. President Biden's poor performance at the debate has some top Democrats calling on Biden to step aside in the 2024 race. Well, despite those calls, the White House says President Biden will not end his bid, defending the president's during the first White House briefing following last week's debate.
The president also spoke to this as well. He said, I'm not as smooth as I used to be. I don't debate as well as I used to. I don't walk as easily as I used to, but one thing that he knows is how to deliver for the American people.
Spectrum's Evan Kozloff is in Washington with more on how the White House is pushing back.
5 days after President Joe Biden's disastrous debate last week, the cracks are starting to show within the Democratic Party. Representative Lloyd Doggett of Texas on Tuesday becoming the first sitting Democrat in Congress to break with the president, writing in part, recognizing that unlike Trump has always been to our country, not himself, I am hopeful that he will make the painful and difficult decision to withdraw. I respectfully call on him to do so. We also heard from 2 other prominent Democrats, former HUD Secretary Julian Castro and former Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan, urging that Vice President Kamala Harris become the party's nominee instead. Ryan, writing on social media, we have to rip the Band-Aid off. Too much is at stake. Representative Mike Quigley of Illinois stopped short of calling on Biden to withdraw, but suggested that Biden's problems were not limited to Thursday night's debate.
But we have to be honest with ourselves that it wasn't just a horrible night.
Quigley said that Biden staying in the race could have impacts up and down the ballot. But President Biden, now 81 years old, has so far resisted calls to bow out over concerns over his cognitive abilities. The White House announcing on Tuesday that President Biden would sit down this week with ABC's George Stephanopoulos, his first wide-ranging interview since the debate. All of this and Biden's Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg in an exclusive interview with Spectrum's Taylor Popolars, also supporting him to move ahead.
No modern president has been able to deliver as many achievements as he did really in his first 2 years alone.
And yet a new CNN poll released on Tuesday showed that 3/4 of those surveyed said the Democratic ticket would have a better chance with a different candidate at the top. At the first White House briefing since the debate, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre argued that it's not uncommon for incumbents to go through a rough go in the first debate.
We get it. The president did not have a great night. He knows how to do the job. And he knows how to do the job, not because he says it, because his record proves it.
Evan Kozloff joins us from Washington. Evan, the president is looking to shore up support within his party and is expected to hold some high-level meetings Wednesday. What can you tell us?
Right, these prominent Democrats were pretty alarmed by Thursday night. Earlier in the week, the chair of the Democratic Governors Association, that's Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, said that the governor spoke about Biden's poor performance and asked questions about the plan moving forward. If President Biden starts to lose the support among these prominent Democratic governors, of course, it could be a death blow to his campaign. So no doubt this will be a very important meeting for the president.
Absolutely. And Evan, former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi says both President Biden and Donald Trump should take some fitness tests.
Right. This is one of President Biden's biggest allies in Congress. And she made the comments on MSNBC in an interview where she mostly was coming to his defense. But she did say it's a, quote, legitimate question to ask whether Biden's performance was a, quote, episode or a condition. She also said that it would be reasonable to ask for a mental acuity test for both President Biden and former President Donald Trump. In the end, though, Pelosi offered support, judgment, and integrity, and the, quote, other guy has none of the above. Sharon?
And I know a lot of Americans would love to see the results of that test. All right, Evan Kozloff in Washington. Thanks. Lawyers for Donald Trump are seeking to toss his New York hush money criminal conviction aside. And late Tuesday, they succeeded in getting sentencing for the case delayed until at least September. The change comes just one day after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the president is immune from some official acts while in office. So joining me now with an in-depth update on the legal maneuvers in this case is attorney Ethan Behrman, adjunct professor at Loyola Law School. Ethan, what does it signal that the judge so quickly granted this change in the sentencing date?
Well, it's important that Trump's attorneys filed the letter right away. And he, of course, Justice Merchan, acknowledges what the Supreme Court just ruled, that there may be some effect on the case. I'm guilty on 34 counts related to election interference and that hush money payment that was improperly labeled and accounted for.
So, Ethan, how could the Supreme Court's immunity ruling impact this conviction?
Yeah, so importantly, the prosecution relied on mostly before President Trump was in office, but when he was in office is when he allegedly, he was convicted. He signed those checks personally out of his business accounts, which is really unlikely that that's an official act. And then secondly, he had a meeting with Michael Cohen in his office that was part of the evidence as well. And that's what Trump's attorneys will be arguing were part of official acts and cannot be used as evidence in this trial.
So, Ethan, what is your insight? Do you think Donald Trump has a chance of having this conviction thrown out?
Yeah, I think it's really unlikely because those pieces of evidence were used. The judge and then likely the appeals court will consider whether or not those were impactful material events that changed the outcome for the jurors in their decision. Remember, it was unanimous by all 12 jurors on all 34 counts. It's hard to see that those will change the outcome, though.
Yeah, good point. It was unanimous. All right, so Ethan, what is next for this case?
Right, so he was supposed to be sentenced next week, July 11th, and that's been moved now. Judge Merchan is waiting for the motions to be filed by September 6th, and the hearing is going to be September 18th. So that's what's next.
All right, Ethan Behrman from Loyola Law School. As always, a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, Sharon.
Hurricane Beryl moving across the Caribbean, leaving several people dead. Where the Category 4 storm is expected to make landfall Wednesday, and how it could impact your gas prices. Just ahead.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
At Spectrum, we know that internet is a vital tool to help you fulfill your dreams.
My dream is to become a video game developer.
My dream is to get my online college degree. That's why Spectrum has At Spectrum, we are committed to delivering reliable, affordable internet and unlimited mobile to keep you connected to what matters most to you.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back. We start off with temperatures for today. Numbers well into the triple digits for folks in the desert Southwest. Dallas closing in on 100 degrees early today, 97 in Houston, sweltering heat along the Gulf Coast. But how about some refreshing low humidity and cooler temperatures on the backside of a front that moved in across the eastern side of the lower 48? Greensboro, Washington, D.C., New York City, all in the low 80s. Columbus, Chicago in the 70s. Minneapolis, a very pleasant 74 degrees. Some of that cool will be continued to be felt across the eastern part of the lower 48 as we head through our Tuesday. But we will have our eyes again peeled across the midsection of the country, the upper Midwest, the Mississippi River Valley, from Minnesota through Iowa, parts of Missouri into Kansas and Nebraska will be the highlighted center for shower storm threat and a severe weather potential too. And it looks like we're going to maximize that potential for the middle of the week on Wednesday. But Tuesday, we're going to see a decent shot at showers and storms and an enhanced risk. Northern Missouri, parts of southern Iowa, I should say, and far northeastern Kansas. Chances for damaging wind gusts, maybe even an isolated tornado, not going to be ruled out in those sections on Tuesday. We're going to re-rack that risk and do it all over again on Wednesday too. But more heat for the south as high pressure stays basically centered right over the lower Mississippi, Wichita, Dallas, El Paso, Phoenix, and sweltering heat and humidity from Houston around the Gulf Coast. And we turn our attention quickly to the tropics. Something stands out. That is Hurricane Beryl, one of the strongest hurricanes this early in the season. This is a August-looking storm in the start of July. We'll talk more about Beryl, where it's going, and the forecast for the 4th coming up.
The death toll continues to rise as Hurricane Beryl slams the Caribbean. The Category 4 storm is expected to slam into Jamaica Wednesday after already leaving a path of destruction in the Grenadines and Venezuela. Spectrum's Ariel Wessler has a look at some of the heartbreaking damage left behind.
Caribbean stoking fears of a rising death toll as the powerful storm destroys island communities.
The island has been flattened. The reports that are coming out show a very, very distressing signal.
Beryl has left parts of St. Vincent and the Grenadines without electricity or water. Buildings, homes, and boats all torn to pieces. In Barbados, people struggle to cope with the devastation.
This is madness. I have never seen this in my 46 years of life. This is madness.
The powerful hurricane made history as the earliest Category 5 storm in the Atlantic hurricane season, fueled by unusually warm waters. Jamaican officials activating disaster response protocols in anticipation of Wednesday's landfall, warning people about life-threatening winds and storm surge.
We are being very strategic that to the general public. You have enough time, enough notice to take the necessary precautions.
Hurricane experts say a storm surge of 5 to 8 feet above typical tide levels is likely in Jamaica, as well as heavy rainfall.
Ariel Wessler joins us now from Southern California. Ariel, concerns are mounting over Beryl's impact on oil prices in the U.S.
Yeah, Sharon, that's right. A lot of people keeping a close watch on where this hurricane is headed and the economic impacts. Right now, the National Hurricane Center is forecasting a shift in the storm's path that could disrupt oil refineries in Texas and shut down oil tankers that are sending crude to Gulf Coast refineries. So as a result, experts predicting a spike of 5 to 10 cents a gallon over the next week. And meanwhile, if you've got a trip coming up, maybe for the 4th of July, might be a good idea to double check your travel plans. Several cruise lines have been changing their itineraries, also issuing travel alerts and waiving change fees in the affected areas. Sharon?
Yes, some good advice there. Ariel Wessler in California. Thanks. The Biden administration proposed a new rule Tuesday to address heat-related illnesses in the workplace as temperatures rise. The rule would require employers to identify heat hazards and also provide training on how to treat symptoms of heat-related health risks. It comes as Spectrum's Justin Honore speaks with a Texas woman who's doing what she can to prevent another heat-related death, like the one that happened to her husband while on the job as a postal carrier.
As the heat bears down, old memories begin to surface for Carla Gates.
This is a picture of me and Eugene when we got married.
It's been just over a year since her husband, Eugene Gates Jr., died in a heat-related incident while on the job as a postal carrier in Dallas.
My mind is just going crazy. Those carriers that is out there in that heat.
The extreme heat is a constant reminder of others in a similar situation as her late husband. Gates, who was invited to the State of the Union in March, is not only advocating for a solution within the legislature, but she is also trying to do whatever she can for postal workers who share the same duty as her husband.
I constantly go to some of the surrounding stations, postal stations, just to check with the employees, just to see how they're doing. Are they hydrating? Have they seen any changes? And of course, some of the workers that I have spoke with, they have told me that there has not been any changes.
According to the United States Postal Service, this past year they have expanded their reach on their heat illness prevention program, which is triggered anytime the temperature exceeds. As told Spectrum News in part, the Postal Service provides mandatory heat-related and other safety training and instruction to all employees and ensures that they have the resources needed to do their job safely. Gates would like to see more being done. She hopes the USPS hears her cries and gets rid of the box trucks that are still on the road lacking AC, plus eliminating any sort of walking routes in addition to implementing cooling stations with extended breaks.
I can be a voice for Eugene, even though Eugene is no longer here with us, but I can still be a voice for the other workers that is not able to speak about the situation.
For her, it's adding extra protections and updating policies as temperatures continue to soar this summer. In Dallas, Justin Honore, Spectrum News.
Coming up on Spectrum News, using compost to grow cannabis plants, what experts say makes special.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3.
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
You've probably seen this buzzsaw of a hurricane in the Caribbean, now entering the Caribbean after it made landfall on a very tiny little island in the Lesser Antilles. This is a storm you would normally see look like in August, maybe September, in the heart of hurricane season, not on the first day of July. Beryl, a monster hurricane, a Category 4 storm earlier this afternoon. This storm will continue to churn through the Caribbean. We have some better news. Places like Jamaica, maybe the southern portions of the Yucatan Peninsula, and then into the Gulf of Mexico. It's going to encounter some very strong wind shear, and what that does is it weakens these hurricanes. So yes, this is a major storm, one of the earliest, strongest hurricanes we've ever had in this part of the world, but it will weaken as it continues to move to the north and northwest. Still something that we're going to have to take very seriously, though. If you know anybody in the Yucatan, folks that may be traveling to Cancun, actually know somebody that was traveling to Cancun here this week, had to tell them, might want to adjust your travel plans. Once it moves back into the Gulf of Mexico by later on this week and into the weekend, that's when we'll pay a little bit more attention to it for folks in places like Texas and maybe even Louisiana. For Wednesday, it's going to be a warm day across the south, but we're also going to see chances for storms again in the midsection of the country. The same areas that have been pummeled by heavy rainfall get it once again for the middle of the week with Nebraska, also Kansas, and then into the Ohio River Valley. Folks in southern Indiana, southern Illinois, into Ohio, northern Kentucky, the possibility of severe storms there, and you're going to start to see the heat build across the East Coast again. So a little respite from the heat and humidity from the Carolinas all the way up into New England, but here it comes. Hey, how about the 4th of July? Big day. A lot of people will have the day off celebrating. The weather looks pretty good for most of the western side of the country, but it's again the midsection of the country, the Midwest, the upper Midwest, and it does look like maybe a few showers in the Ohio River Valley with temperatures soaring again in the deep south. That is what we're going to see all the way through this week, but Thursday especially, heat building across the east. Folks in Raleigh, 98 degrees, could reach triple digits in Dallas, a scorcher for most of us on the 4th.
If you're just joining us, here's what you need to know. Several Democratic lawmakers are calling on President Biden to drop out of the 2024 election. The White House defended the president Wednesday during their first briefing since last week's debate. Sentencing in Donald Trump's hush money case has been delayed until September. The judge will look over a motion to dismiss the case following the Supreme Court's ruling on immunity. And longtime Trump ally Rudy Giuliani has been disbarred in New York. An appeals court found the former mayor of New York repeatedly lied about Trump's 2020 election loss. And that's what you need to know this evening. Well, a new law means adults in Ohio can now legally grow cannabis plants. And to have a healthy plant, you'll need nutrient-rich soils. Spectrum's Kristen Anzuini is helping cannabis plants thrive.
So there's 744 plants in this room.
Christine DeJesus is the director of cultivation at Galena's Cannabis, a cultivation facility located in Akron. She says successful cannabis plants start at the root.
They're all in soil. They're all grown 100% under total organic standards, and we're also certified kind, which is a third-party certifier that proves that we're conducting all organic agriculture within the facility.
She says to grow these plants, they use a special cannabis soil by Till Soil from Rust Belt Riders, a Cleveland-based company that keeps food scraps out of landfills by turning it into compost.
So when I started here, I reached out to them and asked if we could design a cannabis-specific soil together. And that project has now led to their Bloom soil, which we use to flower all our plants out currently.
Bloom is available for anyone to purchase. Nathan Rudd is one of his company's best sellers.
What's special about this is it's got a lot of compost in it, and the compost is made from food scraps that we haul from around the greater Cleveland area. And the food scraps used in all of our products are made into compost that's allowed in certified organic growing.
He says it's important to use nutrient-dense soil like Bloom when growing cannabis, especially indoors.
So we need a mix that's going to be rich, extra enriched, that will meet the nutrient requirements of the generally very hungry cannabis plants. So cannabis plants just take a lot. They require a lot because they use a lot of nutrients to grow big and strong, and also to make the sticky buds and all the THC.
DeJesus says once the cannabis plants have completed their life cycle, the Bloom soil is recycled.
We actually repurpose all of our soil. It goes to either Let's Grow Akron here in Akron, Ohio, which then takes the soil and uses it to build community garden beds, to our Michigan facility, and then use it as essentially a building block for our outdoor field production.
For Spectrum News, I'm Kristen Antolini.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90s coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart TV and connected devices, plus on-demand weather forecasts. It's all there as you step outside, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News Plus, local stories, connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers. Now available on your favorite devices.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars. Really tall. I'm a of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands? Yes. You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Never gonna let you go.